train tracks, you know? They're these strange, almost forgotten spaces, aren't they? They're like these steel ribbons that cut through everything, from our busiest cities to the middle of nowhere. Places where the modern world suddenly feels very, very old. But for some people, they become the backdrop for encounters that are, well, they're impossible to explain and even harder to forget. So today we're diving into 3 true stories from the tracks, where the sound of an approaching train was the absolute least of anyone's worries.
Yeah, we're going to jump right into the fear with this one. I want you to just imagine this for a second. You're sprinting down a dark set of tracks, your heart is just pounding out of your chest, adrenaline is coursing through you, and you hear that phrase yelled from the darkness right behind you. That one chilling warning, it was the climax of a night that started out completely innocent, but just spiraled into this frantic race for survival.
So, what is it that pulls people to these kind of desolate places? I mean, for the 3 people in our stories, it really wasn't a search for anything terrifying. Not at all. Each one of them had a perfectly normal, understandable reason for being right where they were. And none of them were looking for the darkness that ended up finding them. And what's so fascinating is just how normal their motivations were. I mean, look at this. First, you've got a graffiti artist, just looking for a clean, untouched spot to do his work. Then there's a college kid, trying to get that one last hit of adrenaline, you know? That thrill of train hopping before he moves on with his life. And finally, you have a city worker, just doing his job. 3 totally different people, on 3 completely different paths, and all of them ended up leading to the exact same terrifying, unknown threat. All right, so let's start with our artist. He and his friend are out on this quiet, abandoned freight line. I mean, it's the perfect canvas for some new tags. But the piece they were enjoying, yeah, that was about to be completely shattered. And this is just how fast it all went wrong. The artist, he finishes his piece, casually tosses his empty cans down the track, and kind of enjoys that clattering sound they make. Then, a clang comes back. He and his friend, they just freeze. And suddenly, one of his own cans comes flying back at them out of the dark, followed by the unmistakable, terrifying crack of a real gunshot. They went from making art to being in mortal danger in, like, less than a minute. Okay, so our second story is about the thrill seeker. This guy had apparently train hopped 100 times before. The plan was simple: ride through a tunnel, hop off, and walk back. Easy. But there was something waiting for him inside that tunnel, something he was never, ever supposed to find. Can you even begin to imagine that feeling? You're hanging on to the side of a moving train, the world goes pitch black as you enter the tunnel, and then you feel it, a hand, reaching out of nowhere, grabbing you, trying to pull you off the train. He manages to kick free, but then another hand slaps against his leg just moments later. He was not alone in there. So after he gets out of the tunnel, he has this horrifying realization. His only way back to his car is through that same tunnel. He is completely trapped. So he musters up all his courage and starts walking back into the darkness. When he hears this weird clicking sound, he makes a desperate bluff, threatening an attacker he can't even see. He then plays a gunshot sound effect from his phone, just praying it sounds real enough. And his bluff, it works. He sprints through the rest of that tunnel completely untouched. But as he gets to the other side, he looks back, and a flash of light from somewhere briefly illuminates 2 figures, just standing there silently on the tracks, watching him. The immediate danger was over, but that haunting image of who or what was in that tunnel with him, that was going to stick around. And that brings us to our final story. We have an MTA worker. He's just doing some routine mopping in Brooklyn's High Street station. The place is totally deserted, eerily quiet. He hears a few strange metallic clangs coming from deep in the tunnel, which is unsettling, sure, but then he hears a sound that just changes everything. And that's the moment, right? A weird night turns into a potential emergency. Because the sound of a child in distress, it's like a switch in our brains. It's designed to make you react. You simply can't ignore it. And the worker, despite his unease, knows he has to go check it out. He just can't walk away. So he calls out, trying to figure out where the kid is. And he gets a direct response, a simple, yes. Well, that confirms it. It's real. There is a child down there and they need help. So the worker climbs down from the platform, gets onto the tracks, and starts walking into the darkness. And this is where that feeling of a rescue mission starts to feel wrong. The child's voice doesn't give a location, doesn't say what's wrong. It just gives a simple, incredibly unnerving command. Just keep walking.
The plea for help is now a lure. And as his eyes finally adjust to the dark, he sees it, the silhouette of a small child, just like he expected. But standing directly behind that child is another, much taller shadow, an adult. And in that one instant, the horrifying reality just clicks into place. This wasn't a child in danger. This was a trap. The worker thankfully backs away slowly and calls the police. The artist and the thrill seeker, they both escape with their lives. But for all three of them, the terror didn't just end when they got away. Oh no, it lingered. It stayed with them in the evidence left behind and in the questions that could never, ever be answered. See, the really scary part here is that the clues only make things worse. They don't provide any answers. They just open the door to way more terrifying questions. From deliberate vandalism to a scene that looks like something out of a horror movie, these pieces of evidence, they point to something far more sinister than just a simple scare. So get this, the graffiti artist, he actually went back to the spot weeks later, and in one of the train cars, he found a single chair just sitting in the center, surrounded by ropes and chains. And the whole car, he said, just reeked of bleach, as if someone had tried to scrub away evidence. What on earth was that place being used for? And then you've got the thrill seeker, who's left to wonder about those two figures he saw. Were they just squatters, violently defending their territory? Or were they something else entirely? Why try to pull him off the train, only to let him go after he faked a gunshot sound? What were they guarding in that darkness? But this is probably the most chilling question of all. When the police searched the tunnel for the MTA worker, they found nothing and no one. Well, almost nothing. They found a single child's shoe, just lying on the tracks. Was the child a victim, being forced to lure people in? Or was it something else? We'll just never know. As the thrill seeker was running away, he heard one last sound come from that tunnel. A screech that he described with those words. It's kind of the perfect ending to these stories, isn't it? A sound that was human, but not quite. It's a perfect metaphor for these encounters, which all took place in these familiar, man-made environments that were hiding something deeply, fundamentally wrong. It really leaves you wondering, what else is waiting out there in the dark, just a little bit off the beaten path?